Hey friends, and welcome to the Moms About Sanity podcast. I'm Brittany, accountability coach for women who know they're made for more. This is a space where ambition meets real life, where we talk fitness, family, personal growth, leadership, and all the what the hell is happening right now moments in between. Around here, we don't chase perfection. We build momentum. We push comfort zones, ask better questions, and take real action on the goals that matter most. Each week, you'll hear honest conversations, powerful guests, and grounded reminders that you don't have to choose between showing up for your life and going after your potential. So whether you're walking, sweating, driving, or hiding in your car for 5 quiet minutes, you're in the right place. This is your permission to stop playing small in your own life. Let's get into it. We're just going to jump in with Marjie Martini because we've already been talking for like 10 minutes. I'm like, okay, we just need to hit start and start this conversation. But
let's start it up.
I'm so excited to have you here. I'm going to let you do a little intro, but Marjie is here to talk all things menopause, menopause as well, her book.
Mm-hmm.
But before we even get to the book, let's take us back. Who were you before this menopause strategist? Who is Marjie?
Who is Marjie? Marjie's a lot of things. Marjie is originally, I've been a hairstylist and makeup artist for like 25 years. I've split my time between Whistler, Canada, and Sayulita, Mexico. And I went through a very crazy menopause journey. Mine started at 39 and I'm now 56. And I almost died and hemorrhaged to death when I was 49 because I didn't get diagnosed properly in Canada or in Mexico, to be honest. But it was the Mexican doctors that saved my life. But my hormone journey started when I was about 44. And I did a lot of research, 12 years ago, and actually found someone that could help me and was on I've been on bioidenticals since I was 44. And I've always had like a huge passion for alternative health and now rejuvenative medicine. I worked in a clinic in Mexico for 4 years with doing regenerative medicine, peptides, stem cells, and bioidentical hormones. So I've worked with some really amazing hormone specialty doctors, and that from that, I realized that what was really missing is the strategy around how to create an optimal life over 40. It's endless on Instagram, your feed about what you should be doing. Everything from take this supplement, take this fast, don't fast, intermittent, exercise, eat more protein, lift heavy, do this, do that. And it's all valid. And I love the fact that menopause awareness is on the forefront right now because trust me, 12 years ago, it definitely wasn't. But women get to a point, particularly women in their 40s, where the overwhelm is so high, they don't even know where to start. They just feel like shit and they don't even know where to start. They just want a magic pill, a magic injection, a magic anything, a patch, a peptide, whatever it is to make them feel better. And it doesn't work that way. And it doesn't work that way because we are all very, very unique and individual. And that's my job. My job is to figure out what it is that a woman needs and give her the tools and the strategy and be her best cheerleader and go to bat for her and get her the shit that she needs so that she can feel better. And it works. And there's women that I've worked with, generally anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks. And I set them up and I'm like, okay, now you're good. And then they check in with me once a month or once every 2 months. And it's be like, okay, you've put everyone else in front of yourself again in the past month. So we're going to bring it right back. And what are you doing for you? What are you eating? How are you taking care of yourself? How are you managing your stress? And it's been through that journey with the amount of women that I've worked with that brought me around to, actually, I have to give a shout out to Kit Carson because it was being on his podcast that he was the one who gave me the idea to write the book. And the reason I wrote the book is because I had this really great guy that I surf with, and he lost his 30-year marriage. He's 60. And him and I were talking about menopause while we were surfing one day prior to Kit's podcast. And because I was like, what am I going to say to a dude about menopause, right?
Yeah.
And And so I had all these ideas. So we're surfing and I'm bouncing it off my buddy. And, he had some really valid points because he was like, if I had known this shit 10 years ago, my wife and I would still be together. And I was like, so Kid and I talked about it. And then afterwards, Kid's like, you should write a book about this. So I kind of like hummed and hawed. And I was like, yeah, I did some research. And I was like, I've written books in the past, but they were like adventure romance novels. So it wasn't like,
completely different.
It's completely different. Completely different. And then, so I kind of was like toying with this idea because I was like, it'd be great to just give the guys the cold notes. But I was like, it doesn't have, it needs to come from a dude. Men hate listening to women, So it turned out like a couple months later, I have a really good friend that I also surf with who lives in Hawaii, and he is a relationship counselor and a men's coach. And he is, when you talk about men with emotional intelligence, he's probably one of the only dudes on the planet that is at this level. Like, it is crazy. And I helped facilitate a retreat for him in Mexico a couple of years ago. So I've seen his work firsthand, and I had good buddies of mine take his retreat, and they came out completely different guys at the end of it, more empowered, lots of leadership, better communication skills, that type of thing. So he was actually down in Mexico and we were hanging out, and I was like, hey, I really want to write this book about menopause, but for men. What would you think of co-writing it with me? And he was like, you want to what?
We need to speak the same language here.
And he's 50, his wife is 48, and he's like, he kind of didn't really know what was going on. So we sat down one afternoon and I went through like all the symptoms and what happens and all of these things. And it was like the light bulbs were just like going off in his head. And he's like, oh my God, that's why she gets like that. Oh my God, that's why she doesn't eat. And he's got such an amazing, solid marriage. It's beautiful to watch him interact with his wife. But I was like, and he said exactly what most men say. Oh, well, she's fine. She's fine. And I'm like, she's fine right now, but she's not going to be fine. There's no get out of jail free card. She is going to go through this. She might not get all of these things, but she's going to get some of them. Yeah, absolutely. And I was like, and it's not going to be like, oh, it just stops. I'm like, I'm 56. I still get hot flashes if my estrogen isn't high enough. I need more estrogen in the winter and less testosterone in the summer. Like, it's crazy. And I was like, this is a lifelong thing. And so we started the collaboration, and it came out better than I could ever expect, because it was just like, I wanted it to be so simple for men that they would just get it. Like, it didn't need to, and it's not derogatory. I was really adamant about, I didn't want it to be condescending to men in any way. And it's really blunt and to the point and full of lots of shits and fucks, sorry. But, and because that's a guy's world. And it was like, this is what is happening. I basically took the symptoms and I kind of like broke them down into relatable things that men can understand, right? So I relate like a woman stressing out and, having like meno rage and freaking out about stuff to like the pipes in a house blowing. And what would you do if you were the plumber and your pipes were blowing? I relate to the fact that women have a hard time having sex during menopause and it dries out down there. And I relate that to, going from the oasis to the desert. I relate, another chapter about like a woman where, when we lose our estrogen, everything aches, our body aches and our skin dries out and our, like everything just creaks and hurts. And I relate that to like, how would you look after, your 69 muscle car? How would you treat it? Right. Because so I made it so that it's relatable to them. And
I noticed even your framework, like, the red zone, the tactical neutrality, like you really named it very masculine kind of titles in that same. So why did that framing work better, do you think, to like reach the men versus, like our therapy style approaches?
Yeah, because in each chapter, I just frame it out as like, okay, this is the intel briefing. This is the intel. This is how it impacts you as a guy. This is the danger zone. These are the things you never want to do, never want to say, because it's going to take you out. And then the next section is Shems. And Shems comes in and he gives the what to say, why to say it, how to be, what you can do, like how can you be a man and stand in your power and be in your leadership and support your wife without alienating her and understanding, like, and that's what she really needs, right? And how is it that you can protect your own space and your own time, right? Because it is stressful, and, you know, not leave her feeling abandoned. Okay. And how is it that, you know, if she doesn't want to have sex because it hurts, how do you not take it personally? And he nails it. Like, he was sending me excerpts of his chapters and I was reading them, and there were multiple times that I broke down in tears. And I was like, if any of my ex-boyfriends in my 40s had said any of these things to me, I would still be dating them. Like, it's like, it's just
a little mirror back on you at the moment.
Yeah. Like, I'm just like, wow. Like, you know, if, you know, because I'm thinking back to, like, you know, my boyfriends in my 40s and when I was like losing my shit and having mental rage and freaking out about something, and we're having like this knockdown screaming fight on the side of the Sea to Sky highway. And it's like, if he had responded in the way that Shems, you know, is trying to encourage men to respond, I would have just like collapsed and been a pedal and be like, oh my God, thank you for providing a safe place for me. You know, so, and the people that have read the book, and I got to give the guys credit for actually reading it. And now it's available in audio. So they've all been waiting for the audio book so that they can just listen to it. The feedback I've gotten is like, one of my clients sent me a message last week and she was like, my husband finished reading the book and she's like, I can't believe the difference. Like, I've been saying this to him for years and now he finally gets it. And that's all I want, is because like, when I was doing the research and I started to look at the divorce rates, it like broke my heart. I'm a believer in love and romance. I think, you know, every woman deserves an amazing guy. Every guy deserves a woman that is going to have his back. Like, I believe that we are meant to be coupled. Mm-hmm. And the amount of women, amazing women, don't get me wrong, like the amount of women in my circle that are beautiful and strong and, you know, thriving in their 50s, everyone is single. Everyone is single, male and female.
That's huge. That's very fascinating.
That's huge. It's huge. Like, I have 2 friends that I have known for like 30 years, 2 of them that are married. And those are the only 2 that are still together as couples. That's it. And to be honest,
how did you go from like noticing this and then like living it into wanting to become this strategist, right? Like, what was that catalyst?
Because I just want women to feel better.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the amount of women that in my own circle that I have seen struggle, gain weight, drink too much, way too much, get angry, get bitter, don't want to live, be contemplating suicide, be depressed. All of that, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't. Mm-hmm. And you know, but to understand what is happening to a woman through her 40s and 50s and get to the point, which I call sovereignty, where in your 50s, you get to the point where you just don't give a fuck anymore, but you actually have more compassion for people than you ever did in your 20s or 30s. You just don't feel compelled to people please.
Yeah.
I still do. I always will hold space for people, but I have to make sure my cup is full enough to do it. Where 10 years ago, 13 years ago, if I had gotten a phone call from my girlfriend, I would have dropped everything, grabbed a bottle of wine and been out that door and been like, how can I help you? Even though I was depleted. And that's kind of the difference. Women people please our entire lives. We take care of everyone else. We take care of our kids, our husband, our girlfriends, everything else until we have nothing left. And that is usually around our late 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And then, kids leave, they go to school, moms don't have their roles anymore, they change, like the research is insane. Like there's a new title. It's called gray divorce. The rate of people getting divorced over the age of 45, 50 is at 70% right now. It's insane.
And you see it, as you said, like you understand it in a poor way, but you understand it because of the hormonal change, the dysregulation and the understanding, the non-understanding. Kids moving out. Suddenly you don't even know who you are anymore because you're forgetting yourself.
You're forgetting yourself and you've lost your sense of identity because your entire body has changed. Clothes don't fit. This doesn't work. You can't remember anything to save your life. So you're questioning your cognitive ability. Okay. That's another big one. Like, there's this crazy stat, like for every woman, that's being promoted to a VP or upper management presidential level in corporate America right now, there are 2 women that are resigning. And the largest amount of entrepreneurs are women over the age of 50 because women don't want to do it anymore. They don't have the cognitive ability to do it. They don't have the physical ability to run anymore. They don't want to work an 80-hour work week at 52 and be like constantly battling the younger person that's coming up underneath them who's quicker, smarter, this, and they walk into a boardroom and they can't remember the person's name across the table. Like it's incredibly stressful. And I've got girlfriends that are still doing it, that are single moms with 2 teenagers, and their Google Calendar, it looks like a freaking rainbow on steroids. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, how are you doing this? Like, how are you doing this? Why are you doing this?
I think it becomes the why, right? Like when we actually put the awareness into it, then where are your boundaries and what really matters?
What really matters? One of my clients from Austin, who I've known for years, she just quit her corporate job. Same thing, 2 teenage boys. She went back and she took her yoga teacher training. And it's the first time in her life where she's like finding any kind of balance. And she's like, but I can't do it. She's like, I can't raise 2 teenagers and work 50 hours a week and take care of my husband and take care of the house and take care of me. And she was, she's got heart palpitations and she's gained weight and she's all these things. But she's slowly getting back to who she is, right?
So our midlife crisis looks a lot different than men's midlife crisis.
Yes.
Right?
Our midlife crisis looks a lot different than men's. And the couple connection, I'm on all these like guy forums.
Mm-hmm.
There's this guy forum on Reddit that I'm on about menopause, basically. And it's basically guys like writing in on Reddit about what to do with their wives. And it's so depressing because they're all like at a loss and their marriages are just dissolving and they, and they're trying to help. A lot of them are trying to help. They're like, they've got questions like how much, should she be on estrogen? Should she be on progesterone? Will it help? Will this, will that? And it's like, but they've lost their partner in crime. They've lost that, that support system and guys just want to fix it. That's the big part. They just want to fix it or if they can't, they retreat. And none of the things that have worked for them in their relationship up until this point generally work.
And I think that's our fault too, on like one side of it, right? Like we feel like we can't share or express or talk about, because also, as we were talking before we hit record, there's such a lack of knowledge and lack of access, I guess would be the word, in the medical world. And so when we're not doing that, we're trying to advocate for ourselves, but we're still at a loss. And so how are we even supposed to form sentences to our husband to explain what we're going through that would even make them understand? So I love that you have co-authored this with a man.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's meant for men and women because a lot of women don't understand what's going on. And if a guy reads it, he recognizes it. And there's actually like tips and tidbits in there about how to have this conversation with your wife and be like, you know what? Be her advocate. Go to the doctor's appointment with her. Sit down with the doctor and demand that, you know, she gets her blood work done and she gets this done and she gets that done because you're living it with her every single day, right? So if you go with her, it reinforces the fact that there is something that needs to be addressed. And, you know, and it's like, help her out. Like if, you know, there are so many things, you know, change the light bulbs in the house, make it a little bit dimmer. If she needs to go and lie down because she's got a migraine, then let her know that that's okay. And she can take her time and we've got things handled. Like, you know, change out her glass of wine at night for a glass of electrolytes. Like there's all of these small things that can tweak, that can support her as she's figuring out what she needs. And
so with your book, question, hitting, I think number 1, was it, in Men's Health on Amazon?
Yeah.
Do you think it was mainly men buying it or the women buying it for them?
No, it's women buying it for men.
Yep. Okay.
It's women buying it for men for sure. And, you know, putting it on their nightstand or handing it, you know, I had 3 girlfriends buy copies and hand them out to their brothers, you know,
yeah.
and that's, it's not just about the husband and the wife. And it's a big thing because it's like, it's your brother, it's your, you know, it's your brother, it's your coworker, it's your bestie. Like, you know, I've had some really great guy friends that I've been friends with for 20 years. And we've had massive blowouts over the past 5 or 7 years because they don't get it. And I didn't know what to say to them. And all I know is that they're being assholes.
Yeah.
And, you know, and they're looking at me like, what is your problem? I'm like, well, my problem is you.
Plain and simple. There we go.
It's simple. Plain and simple, you know? And it's like, but, you know, I want these guys in my life for the next 30 years because they're my buddies. You know, I don't, and that's the thing. Like, you know, any guy, you're going to be dealing with a woman over 40, regardless of whether she's your wife, your coworker, your sister, you know, your bestie, whatever it is. Like, and when you get to the point, like I'm getting to now with my friends that are a little bit older, it's like this whole planet is about community. And we just keep getting more divided and more divided and more divided and more divided. And we actually should be coming together more. And the more we can come together as friends, as besties, as, you know, husbands and wives, that community, like my community that I hang out with and exercise with and surf with, we have so much fun because it's like we don't have any responsibilities anymore. Yeah. Like we do, but we don't have kids. The kids are done. You know, we have more money. We can play, we can travel, you know, and we want to do that with our community, and we should be able to if we're all feeling great. And that's the thing. Like my group of friends, we feel great, but we, like, even me and my girlfriends, we are the top 5%. There is only 5% of women right now that are on hormones and that have figured out what they're doing.
And it's so sad.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
And
we know now also with research that the longer we wait, the more detrimental to our health it also is. But then again, you know, going back to even your community conversation there, like I feel the more we have and find community, the more empowered we are and the more conversations we're brought into about all things, right? But this one specifically, and really being, we are not alone. This is all natural. This is not something that's all of a sudden a surprise, and yet we feel shame.
We still feel total shame. And, you know, I was raised by older parents. So I didn't come along until my mom had me at 42, which was unheard of in 1970. That was unheard of. Okay. And I remember being like 7 years old and my sister, who was a teenager, and my mom having these knockdown drag out fights. And my mom like storming out of the house and walking 5 kilometers into town to go to Dairy Queen. And my dad just looking at my sister and throwing her the car keys and going, go pick your mother up. And my sister being like, I don't want to go. She's like, and he'd be like, take the kid with you. Take the kid with you. You know, like, I don't blame my dad for drinking. I don't. Like, oh my God. And I just remember like going into Dairy Queen, and I get my dilly bar. I didn't care. But my mom would be sitting there chain smoking and drinking coffee, and she wouldn't even talk to my sister until she had calmed down enough. There was nothing. There was no support.
Yeah.
You know, even hair clients that I had, you know, in the early 2000s during the Women's Health Initiative. Here's a good one. Okay. I had 4 clients that, you know, at that time I was in my 30s, I was their stylist, and they were going through menopause, and they were all on HRT, and they all got yanked off. They all lost their minds. I had one client come in, and she wanted her long blonde hair cut off short and red. This is what happens when you rip a woman off of HRT. I did it over 3 weeks. I wouldn't cut any more than a couple inches at a time because I didn't want her freaking out. We finally cut it, and it was red and all this type of stuff. She came in the salon 3 days later, started screaming at me across the salon that I ruined her life. All this type of stuff. And I was like, I look back on it and it's funny now, but it wasn't then.
Yeah.
You know, and this is what happened to those women, and they had no support. They just got ripped off. And that shit just pisses me off. Because even 12 years ago, when I had to go and find someone that would prescribe me the Wiley protocol, which is one of the original bioidentical hormone protocols that was actually written in 2002.
Okay.
There was only two doctors, one in Santa Barbara and one in Seattle. And then I found one doctor who was Canadian, who was based out of Hong Kong, who was doing bioidenticals at that time. It cost me $5,000 in consultations, and she had to actually send my blood to Hong Kong to have the labs run because they couldn't do it in Vancouver. And I went on bioidentical testosterone and progesterone and B12 and a couple other supplements. And I went from thinking I had Alzheimer's to having my memory back in 3 weeks.
Wow.
Everyone around me thought I was crazy for going on hormones. And it was a game changer for me. It was a game changer.
I think that's the thing. Once you find that level and you can start to stabilize yourself again, right? And like feel you, I think the main thing that came out of the event for me with Dr. Casperson was like, it starts with just not feeling like yourself, and you don't necessarily know what that is anymore. And then, you know, there's the brain fog. And as you said, like, am I experiencing literally early onset dementia? Like, how do I deal with this kind of, then you suddenly realize that you found yourself again, and it's not a you problem. It's a hormone problem. This is natural.
And one of the biggest things I explain to my strategy clients is that even if you go on hormones, HRT, bioidentical hormones, whatever you choose, or you choose to do it with supplements instead, whatever you are on is going to change.
Yeah.
Your script is going to change at least once or twice a year for the next 10 to 15 years. And that's where it's getting missed, because it's not a one patch fits all program. Like, I can't even tell you the amount of times that my script has changed. It changed in my 40s. It changed after my hysterectomy. It changed at 52, after 3 years after my hysterectomy, because my eggs finally stopped. It changed again at 55. Like, changes, your hormones change. Stress affects them.
Yeah.
Stress affects them. Your climate affects them. What you're eating affects them. Everything affects them. So it's like, you have to learn. This was the biggest thing. I had to learn and be so hyper aware of my symptoms and all the symptoms to know that, oh my God, something's changing. Something's changing. Like, I remember being in bed a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden I was like super itchy. And I was like, and it was summer, and I was like, oh my God, there's bugs. There's bugs, you know?
Yes.
And
I do know that
and
feeling.
I'm like, oh my God,
it's a
I've
full
got
moon.
bugs. There's like, I I was like, oh my God, my dog has fleas, or it's the mosquitoes or something, right? And I remember looking at my arm. I was reading my book and I could feel something crawling, and I'm looking and there was nothing there. And I was like, all right, I haven't had this symptom yet. Itchy, crawly skin. Right. Okay. Back to the doc
Margie,
I go.
I'm having like an aha moment right now. I literally had that the other night. I'm like, what the heck is wrong with me?
Right? Back to the doctor I go. And I'm like, okay, I got a new symptom. I have itchy, crawly skin. I've never had this one before. And she looks at me and she's like, and sometimes I think she thinks I'm a hypochondriac. And I was like, no, seriously, like this is new. And she's like, okay, let's run your panels, right? Yeah. Because, I run my panels twice a year, period. I just want to see, make sure I'm absorbing where I'm at, blah, 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 blah. And yes, I know they fluctuate, and yes, blah, 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 all that. But, I like my stats. So it's what I do.
Yeah.
And she looks at them and she's like, oh yeah, you know what? Because luckily I have 7 years of data on my own hormone levels. So I know kind of what my optimal range is. And she's like, oh, look at that. Your estrogen's a little low. She's like, do 2 pumps and see if it goes away. I was like, sure enough, 2 pumps, no more itchy, dry skin.
Fascinating.
But it's like, if you don't know your baseline, and this, one tip I say to all my girlfriends in their 30s, go and get your panel done.
Yeah.
Get your panel done, log it away, put it in your Google Drive so that you know what is optimal for you, because that is super important. So where to start, what to go back to. It's so hard in peri because it's like this, but it's even weirder in your 50s. Like it gets a little more stable because, I'm not laying an egg anymore. So, there's none of that fluctuation, but I still have PMS. Oh, for sure. I still cycle even though I'm not dropping an egg. I know, I can tell. And it's just like those days where you're just a little more irritated than you should be, where like I lose my mind because my 16-year-old dog peed on the floor again.
You're like, what's the edge that needs to be taken off right now? This is not working. Yeah.
It's like, I'm just like, some days I'm like, okay, maybe I do need to smoke a joint, even though I don't smoke weed, but maybe I should start. Like, I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
And then I've got girlfriends in their 60s that just went on hormones, and they're like, oh my God, it's the first time I've slept in 10 years.
Yeah.
So
I find it so interesting that like some people are so against or against them when it is something that we cycle up through puberty, through life, and then we start to come off of, and it's like, it's quote, rocket science. Like, let's figure out what is working for us and supplement with something we're already supplied, but slowly losing because of age.
Well, I think there's two big roadblocks that I get when I talk to women. One is I don't have the money. That's number one. I don't have the money. And I called my girlfriend out on this a little while ago. I was like, how much do you spend sending your daughter to gymnastics? And she's like, oh, it's like $200 a month. And I was like, okay. So that your hormones cost you like $2 to $4 a day, right? And I was like, so, if you can send your daughter to the extra gymnastics class for an extra $200 a month, and you ask her whether she would like her mother to be happy or whether or not she would go to the extra gymnastic class, I can guarantee you she's going to say she would rather have her mom be happy. And I'm like, so
and when you think of $2 to $4 a month, like how many times are we just $2 to $4
a day?
Or a day, sorry. How many times are we just wasting that away anyways? Like, like Starbucks these days is like $10.
Yeah.
How many frivolous things are you just not even thinking about?
So there's that. But, it goes back to, again, women feeling justified spending money on themselves. My girlfriends will spend money on Botox way before they spend money on their hormones, which just kills me. So then I sucked them in and told them to start using estrogen cream on their face because it'll save them on their Botox. And it worked.
Perfect. You're like, whatever, just start somewhere.
And I was like, well, if you're going to order the estrogen cream for your face, you might as well order the testosterone and the other estrogen too. And they're like, okay, that's great.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I was like, oh my God, we're just so demented as women. I just love my girlfriend.
So what do you think, what's like the one thing that the woman can say first to the man, the husband, the spouse, to help him understand before he's going to pick up and read this book?
I think what any woman could say to any man in their life that would actually get them is I would just hand them the book and be like, I really want to like you in the next 10 years. Please read this. And I want
you to like me too.
Yeah. I really want to be friends with you over the next 10 years. So this is really important. Like as a friend, as a partner, as, you know, if it was my lover, I would be like, lover, I really like you right now. Sex is great. You need to read this because I want you around. So where do you hope
this conversation is in the next 5 years?
I really hope that it actually goes more into the male podcast world, and that there, you know, Kid was kind of the first to be like, hey, dudes, this is something that's really important. And, you know, the group, Shems works with an amazing men's leadership group called Sacred Sons. And for it to go down that rabbit hole and out into the male world, because as a woman in my 50s, I am exhausted, and it is really great to have awesome men in my life that are leaders and that support me emotionally and mentally, and it is available. And I want that type of man, the man who is a man's man, who has emotional intelligence. I want that for all my girlfriends.
Finding your community. You're finding yours.
And you know what? Mm-hmm. And I want it for all my single mom girlfriends. And I want it for my girlfriends that, you know, still want to be married, that are in their 30s. And the men are out there, they just don't have the tools. There are so many tools for women, and we talk about shit all the time. Mm-hmm. There's not the tools for men. It's starting, like, mm-hmm. you know, meeting Shems and seeing his community and how he interacts with his bros. And it's just like, it's at a different level. And
finding the vulnerability that comes a bit easier for females.
Those men and the women that are with them and the communities that they form, those are the people that are going to be advocates for not only our health, but for this planet. Right? Because, you know, if you're in perimenopause or menopause, we got 30 years left. So what are we going to give to the generations below us?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how are we going to exit this planet and know that, you know, relationships and community are still intact?
By starting now, right? By bringing them into the room, by, like, literally my daughters were in the room. They were helping me do everything at the live podcast event and listening to this panel of doctors. I'm like, you don't know what sticks in the moment, but them knowing the conversation is out there is the next room to allowing them to have that space. And I think we need more of that.
And who's talking to the friends of your daughters? Who's talking to the guys that your daughters are hanging out with? Like, so that is where I want this book to go. It's got to get to the dads and the brothers and everything else, so that they can give it to them. Like my surf buddy, when the guy who inspired me to go on Kid Carson, he was one of the first guys to read it. He was so funny. He read it and he sent me this message, and he's like, this shit is awesome. He's like, this should be in every high school mandatory reading. He's like, screw Lord of the Flies. He's like teenage boys
a whole
need
other
to
conversation.
read. He's like, teenage boys need to read this. And I was like, you know what? That's pretty valid. Maybe not exactly that book. But why are teenage boys not learning that their moms are going through menopause and that the girls that they're trying to date in puberty their hormones are changing? And guess what? Their hormones are changing. Yeah. And, so it was so funny. I was like, but he was like, he kind of nailed it. It was like, he's 62 and he's looking back over his, lost 30-year marriage and his daughter and all of these things. And he's like, oh my God, if only I had known this at this point, or this at this point, or this at this point. He's like, I'd have a better relationship with my daughter. I'd still be married, all of these things. Wow. And it's like, and hindsight is always 20/20. But what if there wasn't any hindsight when it came to our hormones? What if marriages stayed intact and women and men understood each other more and understood how to communicate better and the fluctuations in our bodies and not take things personally? Mm-hmm. What if the generation below us actually gets married and stays married for 50 years, but happily? Not because they have to stay together like my parents did. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's like, what kind of community or planet would that be, in 2050, when I'm, got one foot in the box and a martini in my hand? I would love to see that. Really. Yeah. I would. Yeah. Absolutely. I don't want the planet to be all divided up. As much as I joke and be like, oh, I'm just going to retire and go to Wonder Woman Island and be there with all my chicas and have a great time. I was like, we still really like men. I hate to say it.
So how can we all align together and support and learn and be okay with things changing and being okay with asking like who am I now in this season? What do I need next? And how can I keep feeling the best that I can ever feel? Yeah, we don't have to succumb to the box, as you said.
we don't have to succumb to the box, No. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I appreciate this conversation. As I said, it needs to be talked about more. I'm excited to dive into the book. I just started listening to it on Audible. So where can people find you and grab the book and work with you? All of the things. I'll make sure everything's tagged as well.
Yeah, everything is great. Basically, Marjie Martini on Instagram is where you'll find everything. The book is on Amazon. You can do, a Kindle or an Audible. It's also now up on Apple as well.
Amazing.
And just share it. That's the biggest thing. The more we talk about it, the more you give it, we share it with the men in our lives that we love and adore, the easier and happier our communication and our relationships are going to be. Yes, and that just makes my heart explode, really.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you. And thank you so much for your time today.
I love the fact that you are pulling this all together. My gratitude to you, Chica, for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. If today's conversation resonated, then ask yourself what one small action you can take from it. Because momentum isn't built in big dramatic moments. It's built in a quiet follow through, the honest choices, and the decision you make when no one's watching. If you loved this episode, the best way to support the show is to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, you don't have to choose between showing up for your life and going after your potential. This is your permission to stop playing small. I'll see you next time.